Folks, welcome back. We're live. We got Sean back with us. We were lucky enough to do that. If you guys don't remember Sean, he is the co-founder of TCG Fish. It's the website we all know, use, and love. And their deals page is even getting better. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how to use that. Hold on, let me get this on silent. We are going to, kind of get into just like, pitfalls and other things you can fall into in this market. The best way to go about, I guess, analyzing data for yourselves and finding deals for yourself and kind of, blocking out a lot of the noise out there. And before we do that, though, before everyone kind of gets in here, I'm going to let Sean kind of give a little intro of him again, and then also just kind of show off some collection and kind of just hang. And then when more people kind of funnel in, we'll get into more of the meat and potatoes. So, Sean, the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, so guys, my name is Sean Bassik. I'm the co-founder of TCG Fish. We're data analytics for Pokemon cards and hopefully very soon other collectibles. And we promote you to think freely, analyze the data for yourself, and make your own decisions. So, and we'll get into that more later. But I did, Alex, assuming it's all right with you, I'd like to share a couple pieces from the collection. I do have a couple Pokemon cards, and then I have one of my favorite non-Pokemon pieces as well. So, if we've
Absolutely,
got time,
let's have at it.
Awesome. All right. So I've cut up a couple test print sheets in Pokemon. So one of them is the make ready test. These are double print cards. Let me make sure I can get them focused on camera here. So we've got some rough glare, but as you can see, we've got, a ghastly trainer with a potion, and then the Slowbro with the psychic energy. And so this was a make ready test sheet, and it was double printed with fossil and jungle and a variety of theme decks layering both of them. So I really love these cards. They're each one with the sheet positions on the back where it was, and they're just super cool. You don't see double prints too often. And then another one, this one was a while ago, but some of you guys might be familiar with the Disco prototypes, the kind of 8-bit test print that came before first edition base. You'll see all sorts of different parts of the card missing, the evolution, the energies, and again, rough glare here, but just really cool holographic pattern that no one's ever seen. And
I mean, I'm sure you put them in slabs just for protection, and but do the grades even mean anything on those, or?
To some extent, I think they do. Everyone would rather see a 10 than a 9, than an 8, than a 7, than a 5, right? So I do think that grade matters, but eye appeal is also really important, and that's it's a much more primary focus in sports. But making sure that something is centered 50-50, and then you've got corners, centering, edges, and surface, right? And so centering is one of those really glaring things that if you don't pay attention to, you could be getting 9s that they're actually a 10 other than centering, right? And the reason they got a 9 is because of centering. So yeah,
those are really cool.
Yeah. So, and then this one, probably not going to translate too well. It's a misaligned print layer Mewtwo, and there's a gap between the hollow and the bottom at the shining Mewtwo. So you'll be able to see it much better if you look at it on the CGC website. But there's a good, probably a couple millimeters at the bottom where there's just no hollow and it's shifted up. So not a crazy shift, but just a minor one. I thought that was cool. And then
how did you get your hands on these? Are these?
This Mewtwo, someone actually bought it, and it was in an old PSA holder that they don't designate errors, and so they just identified it and pointed it out to me, and then CGC always identifies the errors, so we cracked it out, sent it in, and regraded it with the error designation.
I can't imagine what the pop is on something like that.
With the error, probably pretty low.
Yeah.
It's actually a good question. I don't know if they differentiate errors in the pop report or not. So could be a cool recommendation for CGC to hop on. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. So, and then this one is it's probably my favorite non-Pokemon piece. It's a piece of original art. So it's by Katsuhame Hashi. And it's the cover art for Rift Wars Saga Part 1, Magician's Apprentice, the Japanese paperback. And Raymond E. Feist is the one that wrote the series, and it's it's about these alien creatures that kind of come through a portal and start destroying the world. And so if you've seen Pacific Rim or any of those, it's this came about 25 years before that, and so it's what I think led into some of the story arc for Pacific Rim.
Interesting.
Yeah, the English copies of those book and worldwide, I think it's sold like 15 million copies. It's pretty crazy. Like it's out there. So
are these like PC pickups, or are these like something you're selling?
The artwork is PC. The Mewtwo's PC. The Discos I have duplicates, and then the double prints I have duplicates. So that's stuff that I trade out mostly over time. You'll probably see me sell one here or there a few times a year, but mainly I use that stuff as trade bait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, people are already getting on me in the chat about it. I mean, I don't know if you ever watch any of my stuff, but I've been critical of CGC in the past. Like,
okay.
What's your stance on the whole thing? I mean, how do you feel about the whole CGC versus PSA, drama?
Yeah. So I just try and stay out of it the best I can. So I don't mean to hurt you when I say this. I really haven't watched too many of your videos, right? Because when I see what I perceive as sensationalized stuff, and this is actually what we're going to be getting into later about thinking for yourself and interpreting your own data, I just stay away from that, right? I'd rather go for a walk outside and think about my own data than listen to someone, say they like this or they don't like that.
I wouldn't think you would have seen any of my stuff. I didn't know if you ever caught any of the live streams or anything, though. So some of those are pretty good.
I've hopped in a couple. Yeah, there was one earlier this week I hopped in and caught about 10 minutes of. So like I've hopped in here or there, but in terms of I don't really watch much television or YouTube or anything like that. So I guess I'm fortunate enough that I just kind of stay out of listening to that. But look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and like if you want to talk about CGC versus PSA and preferences, like I'm more than happy to discuss that stuff with you as well.
I mean, I just like, this is obviously is your opinion, but
yeah,
what do you kind of see the future? Like, do you think that, they're going to get through all this craziness that they've been going through, and they are going to, the 10s are going to eventually kind of get in line with the PSA 10, or is it kind of just all going for that pristine, and that pristine's going to kind of hold the torch somewhere in between PSA and Beckett Black Label, or, where do you kind of see things going?
So here's what I have noticed, and I've got more access to data that we're slowly getting put out than most people. So I get to watch this stuff firsthand. Because of CGC's change, a ton of new cards and reviews and brand new just reslabs, raw cards came in. And so the population started multiplying. So CGC got a lot more popular very quickly. And then instead of people sitting on those or holding them, they started dumping them. And so that's where you see like the first edition Charizard go from 168 grand to 75 to 66 to 50 to 42, all in a couple week period, because 5 of that card sold and the market doesn't have the liquidity to absorb it. Now, if you look at a PSA 10 copy of that card, what does one sell once a year, a couple times a year? And so you just look at the frequency, and there's just not enough dealer resistance or collector liquidity to support that price. Now, if that card doesn't come up for another 6 months or 8 months or a year, I guarantee you that you're going to watch it climb up. And so what we're seeing is that the lower end 10 relatively equal. It's CGC started getting so many 9.5 to 10 reviews. People are taking Beckett 9.5s and reviewing them, cracking out really nice PSA 9s. There's just a lot more 10s coming to market. And I think Steven put out a chart yesterday. There's 15 in 2 hours, something like Pacific last night. Within a 2-hour time span, the amount of CGC 10s available via public sources went up by 15%. In PSAs, actually, there's a significant quantity increase as well. And so it's just, there's more product getting out on the market. So I think all of this is healthy equalization, right? A big shakeup occurred. So they made a grading scale change. You have a ton more stuff coming to market, and we need to settle out for 3 or 6 or 9 months to see where does it equalize. And so the original hypothesis was that it's going to tank completely to the point where they might be 20 and 30% of 10 prices, but before CGC 10s where the pristines were about 3 to 4% higher than PSA on average. And the 9.5s were about 45% higher than 9s. So what we think is going to happen is they'll settle out around 30% below PS, maybe 20%, or sorry, PSA 10s, and they'll equalize and then very slowly over time start closing the gap. But frankly, there's more frequency of trading and selling right now than the market can handle. And so we're going to see a lot of erratic behavior until it stabilizes. Well,
first thing is, guys, Steven, who he's talking about, that's the other co-founder of TCG Fish. He's probably put out those numbers in their Discord. I think I have the link in the description. So the TCG Fish Discord, that's where you can kind of keep up to date with the site. But then as far as what you're talking about the regular gem mint 10s you think are going to eventually close the gap, or the pristine 10s?
Yeah, so right at the beginning, I had sold off a few 10s and I was actually getting PSA 10 prices. I sold some beyond PSA 10 prices because I was just messing around and seeing what happened. And it's been over the last about 3 months that so much of them have come to market that the prices are coming down. Okay. So I think once the supply has increased and the demand has stayed about the same. And so until the supply decreases and equalizes, we're going to see this erratic behavior of probably what you might describe as really crazy ups and downs. I would give it, my best guess is another 3 months or so. And I think that things will stabilize in terms of the grades that are coming to market and being sold, because the people who got all their 9.5s to 10s that are just dumping them, those are now going to either have been sold or sitting in collections.
Yeah, I mean, the market's kind of crazy right now anyway. I mean, this isn't a normal market. Things are definitely like PSA slabs, slabs in general have been trending a little down lately. And so that's got something to do with it as well. A lot of sellers right now, not as many buyers as there were. So I think when the market stabilizes more, we'll probably be able to see a little more idea of how that's going to stabilize too.
Yeah, definitely. And the big thing that I want to stress, we're seeing the same buyer demand, and we're just seeing more markets from the data side. And I don't remember the exact PSA because I think Steven sent that one to me privately, but there's a lot more PSA stuff up on the market right now, like a significant amount more. And like I said, within a 2-hour time period, someone launched an auction where the supply of CGC 10s increased by 15% in 2 hours. Yeah. And so, it's only about 200 cards within the week, but that just shows you, depending on what they are, we're going to have to see what the buyer demand is for that. But the amount being spent is actually the same, if not steadily increasing. There's just a little bit too much supply, and that's what's causing the downward pressure.
Okay. Yeah. And how much is your CGC sponsorship paying you? No, I'm just kidding you, man.
I mean, but if CGC is watching this and they want to sponsor TCG Fish, they're more than welcome. PSA as well, Beckett, any grading company or marketplace, if you want to sponsor TCG Fish, you are more than welcome to reach out. Please do.
You want me to go ahead and jump into the deal section?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right, guys. So I think there's enough people in here now. We're going to jump into some of the stuff we wanted to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up on the share screen.
Yeah, and if you want, so that I can click around, because I'm actually going to hop back and forth between the data, eBay.
Oh, so do you want to pull it up then?
I can present as well. If that,
okay, I'll remove mine. You go ahead. You should be able to pull it up as well.
All right, let's see. Screen sharing is easiest with 2 monitors. Well, I'm on a laptop, so we've got one shot at this. All right, so Chrome. Well, I'm just going to do, let's see, window. I'm just going to do the window for Chrome and hope that works. So I'm now, since I don't have 2 screens, are you able to see the deals page and me hopping back and forth between data?
Yeah, so I can see the deals. Yeah, I can see all of that.
Okay. And am I on the data page right now?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
I'm not as much of a dinosaur as I once thought. So
you're good.
All right. Yeah. So, but yeah. So anyway, I mean, Alex, do you have any questions you want to go over? I'm not prepared. I don't prepare for anything. I have no notes. So I've just got this page up in front of me and I was just going to talk. So
good. That sounds exactly like I handle things. So, Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest things is going to be talking about just exactly how to use this tool to find those best deals
Yep.
on eBay and actually get an under market price. Kind of talk about like the thumbs up, part to get an idea. Tell people like about how to cipher through which ones are the best ones to watch, and then also, I guess you can just click bid now and it takes you directly to the eBay page for the card, right?
Yeah, so that's what. So the first thing, and this is more because of a sports background, but you always want to buy the card, not the holder, and so that some of the pricing variance isn't because one card, a card in the same grade goes for 150 one day and 250 the next. It's because sometimes there are nines that really don't look like nines. Sometimes there are nines that are incredible that people think they can get tens on. And so there's some arbitrage opportunities there. But let's look, this Charizard, we've got a 3 thumbs up. And so this card is under half price, and it's a popular holo rare of EX Crystal Guardians, right? And so now, when we look at this card, we're like, okay, well, there's actually really expensive shipping because it's global shipping program, so that chunks away, a good $34 for me here. But when we look at this card and we look at the grade, the centering is off left right. We've got a pretty chunked top left corner, and then we go to the back and you see like pretty clean otherwise, but that top left corner is actually got some pretty significant wear. And so that's likely the reason for the grade of 7. But, I would rather see a 7 that has maybe some light surface scratching and you can't see as much visible wear. And that's my personal preference. But, I'd put this is like an average to below average 7. And
now,
so
do you think it being, from outside the US or outside North America has a factor too on why it's below market?
Yeah. So as you see here, look, just $34 shipping. So if we're shipping first class in the U.S., it might be $4 or $5. So the shipping cost is pretty rough. So when Fish sees it at $93, right? It's like, well, there's a $34 shipping. So we're actually at what, 126.
Right.
And so, is in terms of a price, it's still 60% of the market price. And if we click into the card data, we'll be able to see what these in 7s go for. And so, the last 7 sold for 200. The average of the last 3 is 223. And let's see if the 90-day price summary. So yeah, so we've got a low of 142 and a high of 250. That's the range on this card. So, this is one where you go, well, it's still probably a pretty decent deal. Like if you could get this card for $130, $140 all in, I still think it's a solid deal. You can retail it out at a show for $180, $200 pretty quickly. But, you're going to wait how long for it to ship into the country. You've got the potential for more damage. And so on the surface, this one's like, well, it's at 60% of market. I could bid into 70, but there's additional factors that go into that. And that's why, that's part of why I say, you don't need to listen to any person touting buy this card or buy that card. Dig into the data yourself. And, I'm always going to promote to do my best to tell you, like, here's the data, make your own decision. And so my determination on that card is, even though the current bid price is less than half of market, I actually don't think it's too great of a deal. But the interesting thing is some of the thumbs up, right? This is only 1 thumbs up, but the card's 90 and we've got market at 163. So let's check.
And so John, I'll stop you right there.
Sure.
So all the TCG Fish data, the market price and all that, how's that compiled? Is that just eBay sales? Is it like across multiple auction platforms? Is it buy it now and auctions? How's that usually compiled? Do you know?
Yeah, so the market price is actually a proprietary metric that we've created. So that's a predictive price for what we believe the card is going to sell for.
Okay.
So it's completely
accurate, though,
custom.
right?
Taking in all of the market data, all of the market trends, where we see things headed. One of the biggest curveballs for us on market pricing was the CGC change. That it was a pretty heavy lift to kind of go, well, now, we're pretty much, we have to go, well, equalizing old 9.5s and new 10s and taking pristines, and how do we treat perfects? And there's, a lot more factors went into that.
Yeah. What do you see? What do you see Perfects doing? You think that's going to be on like a level of a black label, pretty much, or?
I think that those are going to take a while. Perfects are, in my opinion, going to be like a really long-term play. That's going to be one of those things that, assuming CGC stays the course and sticks around, which they've done for 35 years in comics and coins. So I don't see any reason why they wouldn't in cards. I think the Perfects will differentiate and set themselves apart. They already sell very strong, much stronger than a PSA 10 and well above a pristine, but below a black label. And I think that over time we'll see those increase, but I think that's a long-term increase, not necessarily a today type of increase.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there we got another triple thumbs up.
Let's see. All right. Yeah. So now we're dipping into a little bit cheaper stuff. So these are where you can actually have some pretty good margins. So, we've got, let's see, a level X Stormfront Machamp. And so this guy is actually in my backyard. He's in Scottsdale, Arizona. So you've got, like we said, $4 or $5 shipping in the US. So we have $4 shipping. So we've got a much lower shipping cost. So right now, all in is, just 17 and a half bucks. And if we look at the data of that card, relatively popular, really difficult and high grade, really affordable for what it is, middle of the road vintage, liquidity score isn't great. It doesn't transact too often. And so if we dig in and we look at when the last 8 sold for PSA, so we're going to see the last sale in February of $51.69, the average of the last 3 at 44. And, there's no recent sales. So this is a 90-day price summary. So there's no recent sales in the last 90 days. So let's check what Fish said again. So Fish has 49, right? So Fish is below the most recent sale and slightly above the average based on all of the all of the surrounding data. But so this card, if you got it for 25 or 30 bucks all in, in my opinion, that's a pretty good deal. This is a $45 to $50 card all day, and especially the late mid-air, so the black and white, the diamond and pearls, the level X's, the EX, like any of the silver border, they're really difficult and high grade. They scratch super easily, and so anything 8, 9, or 10 is really, really respectable. And now here's the one thing I want to talk about is grading company arbitrage. And so let's say you look at this card and you go, well, this is a really nice 8. I only see a little corner nick. There's a up here in the top right, there might be a little bit of whitening on the right side. And you go, well, maybe this card's actually a 9 or a 9.5 with Beckett or CGC, and you can start looking at still buying it for value for what it is. So you could buy the card and try and get it for $30 or $35, but you could pay a review fee with Beckett or CGC, and if it goes to a 9.5, the card might actually be worth 80 or 100. And this generally works on a bit higher value cards, because when you're paying a $20 or $30 review fee, or I think CGC reviews might be, I don't know if it's the same as grading or if it's a separate service. So it might be a $10 to $20 charge based on their new fee structure. But when you're looking at something that you could buy for 100 and a grade up could be 300, you could end up spending that review fee if you have a really good eye and creating additional margin in what was already a good deal for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and also it's just like you constantly have that level of people wanting to review it up the line. I mean, even if you send it in and it gets an 8.5, well, then you're gonna have people looking at the 8.5 saying, well, that could be a 9, and then they'll buy it, try to upsell it. It's just, but I agree though. I mean, I don't know if there's like an exact number, but probably like over $100 cards, you probably want to start with the reviews, because anything lower, you're just eating up all your margin. Yeah,
exactly. And so this is where the 9 to 10 differential is generally the biggest. So this Charizard, I hope it's going to be a good example. I think it is. But so, this card, you have a PSA 9, and now 10s of it generally jump up quite a bit. So, so right now you've got 34 bucks and $5 shipping. And if we look at the data on this card, we're going to see, okay, the last sales in 9 are 60 to 70. Well, CGC 9.5 was 150, Beckett 9.5 was 150, Beckett 10 was almost 200, CGC 250, and so when in PSA 10 is 140. And so if you look at this card and you go, you want to look at it for condition, and this guy doesn't actually have a back photo, so I would instantly rule this one out. I can't look at the back. I don't know, is there wear, is there tear, why did it get a 9? So I would buy this card as a 9. You know, if I could get this for $40 or $50, good deal. I can make 20, 30, 40%, but I'm not going to count on that grading arbitrage or pay into it. And so I assume if someone doesn't have a back photo, sometimes it's just smaller sellers. And if we click into this guy, probably doesn't have back photos on anything, you know, but let's see. He's got a raw card here. Let's see if there's a back photo. Like, this guy just doesn't take back photos. So I don't think there's anything sinister or nefarious. I just think that he's lazy. He wants to take one photo and put it up. And so that's a card where, because he doesn't put a back photo, it may very well go for less than a PSA 9 because people can't analyze it properly. Is it a strong card? And also, he's ending it at 11:30. So he's ending it at noon Pacific on a Thursday, right? So it's just a really weird time to end it. And so that's another thing I'll throw out there. Use sniping services. Gixen, Gixen, I've used that for the last 10 years. That way you can put in your bid and forget about it, and you don't get caught up in the moment, right? If you're trying to make a decision on, is this card worth it? Make your decision outside of emotion. Go, well, my cap is going to be, shipping is $5. My cap is going to be 50. So go set a little odd number snipe, so $50.12. And just let the sniping service execute the bid for you. Because I like chat, I'm not able to look at chat because I'm only on one screen. So Alex, you're gonna have to tell me how many of you guys have got caught up in last second bidding where you knew you were willing to pay one number, but because you wanted to chase the card, because you saw someone go one more, you go one more, and then you end up 5 more and 6 more, and then it's like, well, I wanted to pay 50, somehow I paid 85 for the card.
Or even worse, you just get caught up with life and you miss the auction, and it goes for way lower than it should have went, and you could have made that play. So like that happens too.
Yeah. So I highly promote that. It is a free service. I think you sit through a little bit of an ad for the free, and I think it's like $6 a year, like a year. So like we're talking 60 cents a month. You'll make that back on one card. But I would highly recommend Gixen. So it's Gixen. That's the best sniping service I've used forever. And I would highly recommend anyone here that's trying to buy on margin, or that has a life and can't sit at the computer and happen to watch every auction at noon on an odd day of the week. That's probably a good thing for you to use, and not just for finding deals, but for your collection too. Again, like Alex said, you get caught up in life. Being able to place a bid when you're not there, and knowing that you're going to either hit it for your max, under your max, or someone else won it, pretty good, pretty good outcome.
Well, and for anyone who didn't catch that little thing he showed with that seller too, guys, if you guys everyone's going to come to a time where they sell something. If you're selling, make sure you're taking clear pictures of the front and back. If you are auctioning it, which auctions can go either way, so like make sure if you're auctioning something, it's something that's really liquid and does go around the same market price. But if you're auctioning it, make sure it's ending at a time when most people are going to have their eyes on it that aren't using sniping services. When it's like, a nighttime. I think Sunday nights usually were good. Like Friday night or something may not be the best, and don't end it in the middle of a day like that. So keep those things in mind. Great times to buy, great ideas to buy. If sellers don't do those things, don't be that seller, because you'll get less on your cards.
Yeah. So I'll tell you guys all the optimal times. This isn't public information anywhere. So anyone watching this stream or checking the video, take notes. So any card above $800, you want to end around 11 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. And so the best time to start that auction is Thursday for 10 days at right around 11 p.m. ending on Sunday. Anything above $800.
Why 10 days?
Anything below.
Why 10 days?
So 10 days gives you 2 full weekends. So you start it, let's say you start it, so today's a Thursday. So let's say you started something today for 10 days, you get this full weekend, and then it will end on the 8th. So you get the second full weekend. And so you end it at the optimal time on the optimal day, and you had 2 full weekends for the maximum exposure for someone to look at and bid. So anything above about $800 market value, that's the best day and time to end your auction. And then anything below that, Tuesday through Saturday at 10 to 11 Eastern. It doesn't, none of those days, they're all right around the same in terms of their liquidity, how many people bid. And so anything below 800 Tuesday to Saturday, 10 to 11 Eastern, anything above 800 Sunday, 11 Eastern. And you just never want to end auctions on Monday. On average, for whatever reason, Mondays are just bad days. So if you check the deals bot on Sunday and Monday, you will see, like, we've had times where there's 40% deal rate on thousands of auctions, because so much for Sunday and Monday. Sunday being you only want the high end to end, so all the low end underperforms, and then Monday is just a bad day in general. Monday's the best day for deals, period. And again, you don't need to take my word. You can go to this page on Sunday and Monday and look at the quantity of deals and the deal rate, and you'll see it spikes.
Do we want to ask where you got that data from, or should we not?
I mean, that's part of what what TCG Fish does. We're working on all sorts of changes to put out. And for those of you who are on Discord, looking at the features, looking at the support and the discussions, you'll see some of what we're talking about. But we have so much data that we're trying to figure out exactly how to display it to everyone and give you something that you can understand and make action, take actionable insights from. So that's data that we have. We're just trying to figure out how to best present it, right? And that one, what I just gave you, that's probably best presented in a blog article or a news article of some kind, because until it changes, that's the best. And then all for the market indices and market pages, we've got all sorts of things we're working on, and there's literally hundreds of reports that we need to figure out what everyone wants and needs and get them out there so it's easily understandable.
Okay. Do you want to keep going with this? Do you want to take this down?
Yeah, we can hop to something else. Let me stop screen sharing here.
Okay, because I know you said you also wanted to chat about just kind of, we already talked about, like, making up your own mind and reviewing data for yourself and not kind of getting involved with all the noise. Because, I mean, obviously I'm probably part of the problem. I mean, there's a lot of noise out there on YouTube with, buy this, don't buy that, sell this now, buy this now. And I just don't know if there's enough people out there that actually take the time and even know where to go and where to look to for this data and understand, like, how to derive the data into, an actionable scenario of what you should do. And so, I mean, TCG Fish is a huge help with this. I mean, what else do you have to add to, like, because, guys, Sean's, how long have you been in the industry of trading cards?
I think the start was Neopets when I was 11 years old. So, the Neopets trading post, right? And I guarantee you people in here know what I'm talking about, but I would buy and sell Battle Dome items and I'd make offers and just figure out how to buy and sell those on margins, find what's useful, what's popular, and can I buy it at one price and sell another? So I really got my start on, like, Neopets and like video game auction houses like World of Warcraft and playing around with that sort of stuff. So, I've been, to some extent self-taught just by accident from a really young age.
And then, I mean, and you've been in and out of, multiple different areas of collectibles, sports cards, other types of TCGs. And so, I mean, just kind of give it, share with us whatever knowledge that you've come up with over these years with the people that you've been involved with, and, everything you've kind of experienced on, like, how people can better, I guess, position themselves in this hobby and other hobbies like this.
Yeah. So stop listening to other people and start interpreting your own data. If someone's getting you to pay them $5 for a Patreon, you're paying for their interests and you're supporting whatever their interests are. They don't care about you or your interests. And if they're pushing a card or two really hard, there's probably a reason for that. They're probably pretty invested in that and they're not going to disclose it. And so, there are some people that probably promote free thinking and just saying, make your own decisions. But I'm just going to preach it and say, go interpret your own data. and look at the price of a card and look at the pricing history. And you need to get, if you're going to trade successfully, right? So if you're a collector, that's one thing. Just make sure you're not getting taken. Make sure that you're paying within a fair market, within a reasonable fair market price for what you're buying. But if you're a trader, if you're doing this to make money, if you're a massive Pokemon or Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever fan you are, and if you want to use your hobby to make money, learn how to interpret your own data and stop listening to the fear and the anxiety and the hope that people are selling in videos, because they don't have your best interest in mind. They have theirs in mind. And so look, if you and I'm not screen sharing now, but just take the base set Charizard, for example. It's one of the highest frequency trading cards. It sells within a narrow margin. And if you know that your worst case is I'll pay 12% fees to eBay, and you can get that card at a 20% discount, you've got a safe 8% margin. And if you sell it at a show, you probably could get a 15 or 20% margin. And so knowing, hey, this card is very likely to sell for $900. And in fact, in the last week, 20 copies have, that's interpreting your own data. And so getting into a group of people who are willing to have objective discussions about cards and without agendas, without trying to build someone up or take someone down, that's going to be the best way to be successful. And so there's a variety of pricing tools. I think, let's say you have alt, you have price charting, you have TCG Fish. I think there's some like Pokey data, and there's a couple other that I'm not familiar with off the top of my head, but just take the data for what it is. And so, price charting doesn't verify a lot of information. So as you delve deeper, you'll see that there's sales in there that were removed or didn't happen because someone didn't pay, and there's not as much curation. Alt is probably a step better because they do a lot more PSA, very little or no CGC, but it has a decent price tracking mechanism. It gives you some sort of range. Again, you still want to interpret it yourself. And then with Fish, you can go look at the individual sales and some of the liquidity information, affordability, how popular, and you don't even need to just use one price tool. You can use multiple. You can compare things and gather information to make a decision. And just know that the better you are at your decision making and the better you are at assessing the data, the more accurate your buys are going to be and the closer you can project your profit. And there's risk in everything. And so like buying a card, even if it's half price, is not risk free. There was some pump and dumps in some of the Japanese modern, like the Lily card, the Battle Boost. That card went from 40 grand, and I had bought one at 16 and a half. I thought it was a great buy, and then it goes for like 9 grand. And that's after I graded it and got a 10 on it. And so I interpreted that data, and I took an educated bet, and it didn't pay off. And so that's a super low frequency card that someone was pumping and dumping. And the population, when I delved into the data after, because I just looked at the pricing, I didn't delve into the population or anything. It's actually a super high pop card. It just doesn't come up too often for whatever reason. But that was a card that it doesn't transact often. It jumped, 4, 5, 6x from where it was, and it came back down. It was just as volatile. And so that's almost like a penny stock, whereas old WotC hollows and e-readers, those are going to be more blue chip, and they're going to trade within a much more narrow margin.
Yeah, and this is going to be a pure opinion-based question, but
sure.
Pop reports, this is obviously going to differ from, vintage mid-era to modern because, there's a lot more liquidity in modern right now. But what do you consider? I mean, and there can be a different number for vintage and mid-era compared to modern, but what do you consider yourself for like high pop report? Too high to move into.
Yeah, so you almost have to drill in. This is one of those questions where I'd say you have to drill in more and get more specific. So like what I'll do is I'll section that off, and we can go Wizards of the Coast. So let's just take one of the like Neo Genesis or Neo Rev, some of those like extremely low pop cards, right? I think the Typhlosion First Ed is maybe a pop 4.
Right.
Like that's a low pop, but it's also to some extent you have to go. How many collectors are there for that card? So that card goes, you've got high supply, high demand, low supply, high demand, high supply, low demand, and pretty much everything in between. And so the T17 specifically, I would say that it falls into a low supply, low demand card, but it doesn't trade often. And so the low demand that's there, as long as you have two collectors that need it, it will perform at auction, and as long as you have one collector that needs it, it's going to perform at a buy it now or in a store setting. So like that card, I would say is really low pop. But to some extent, it's going to depend on the demand for that card and how often it trades. Because the Lugia, there's one person that owns a good chunk of them. He's on Instagram for the people that might be familiar with him. But that card is, it's arguably multiple times the population of the Typhlosion, but it's not necessarily a set card. And there's a good deal of demand there. And people will buy and sell and trade that. So even though the population is, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 times the amount of Typhlosion, I'd still consider that a low pop card. Let's say the first edition base set Charizard, that is not a low pop card at all. There's an immense amount of 9s and quite a few 10s, especially for the price and the market cap of it. But it's a high demand card. Like that's the card for many people. It's the highlight of the collection. And then let's say
when you get into like the alt arts, are they all just there's no way these are going to stand the test of time, or
that's going to be a supply and demand equation. I don't have that data off the top of my head, so I don't want to, say one way or the other. But
the reason I'm saying that because they're all going to be in the thousands as tens. They're all going to be.
Yeah. So can you what year? Can you give me a couple specific cards?
Oh, just any. We could take like Chilling Reign and Blaziken and Moltres. We could take Lugia from Silver Tempest. We could take Giratina from Lost Origin, and kind of down the line, like any of the top alt arts in Sword and Shield right now, they're all going to have thousands of pop. But is modern with Sword and Shield kind of being the era that brought probably the most people ever back into the hobby since '99, and the demand, like, is there still a chance that even with those higher pop reports, there still will be growth in the future? That's where I've been really questioning myself. I didn't know what your take on it was. Obviously, this is all opinion based, guys.
Yeah, of course. So I pulled up the Lugia from Silver Tempest, right?
Yeah.
And so that card, it's actually easier to get a 10 on that than any other grade. In fact, there's pretty much 2 10s for every 9. And like I would call it an extremely easy card. And if I look at the liquidity score on that card, it's actually 100. The popularity is 99. The liquidity is 100. And so the grade difficulty is easy. The affordability is pretty strong. And when I look at the chart of that card over the last, 6 months, it's actually, so upon release spikes way up. And then it's stabilized, and the card has been extremely stable at the $300 to $400 mark for the last 6 months, and so
that's through a reprint too.
Yeah, exactly. And so my take on that card, based on what I'm seeing, is it's stabilized well enough over the last 6 months. And it's very affordable at that $300 to $400 price point that most of the really quick 10s have probably already been graded of that card. So I actually think that a card like that, and I'm not a modern fan, I'm just interpreting the data that's in front of me. I'm a vintage collector. I actually think that card over a long period of time creeps its way up because you're not going to be popping too many more 10s. And there's clearly enough price resistance at that $300 to $400 price point. So it wouldn't surprise me if in several years that card was up 50% or 80%.
I guess like more the conversation I was trying to have too, which is that's all great too. I appreciate that. Is looking at we could say WotC or we could say like the mid-air Nintendo, but do you think there's a difference of looking at 1,000 pop card in modern compared to 1,000 pop card back then? Like, do you think that because back then that's a whole lot. Where nowadays, with the amount of demand and eyes and all the new collectors that came in the hobby wanting these, do you think the demand's just so high on this modern that the pop reports can be a little higher and still be as investable as a vintage?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. I think that there's likely a lot more demand for some of the modern cards. You know, when you look at base set Charizard or Blastoise or Venusaur or some of the hyper populars, you know, like the Unlimited Lugia, you know,
Ancient
Hollow,
Mew.
yeah, Ancient Mew, which there's just, you know, the print run on the Ancient Mew was, I believe it was 10 million. And so, you know, there's plenty of them out there. There's plenty of them that have been destroyed over time, but you can find really big hordes of that card all at once, and they're super, super clean when you find them. And so that's one that I think it's a careful balance between just not selling too many of them, because there are guys with thousands and tens of thousands of copies of that card. So, you know, to some extent, it's the responsibility of whoever has that massive quantity for a couple of those vintage promos to just not crash the market. You know, and so
and most of the guys who have that, they're smart about that.
Yeah, exactly. And like I would say now if you took like a random Stormfront Hollow, or, you know, because I kind of want to get as close to comparing apples to apples as we can with a modern alt art, and to get to the something that has some liquidity, you're going to have to pick out one of the hyper populars of a vintage set.
Okay,
and,
let's take like a Shining Gyarados Neo Rev. That's pretty liquid.
Yeah.
That's pretty popular.
Yeah. So like, you know, now let's say you took 20 of the Shining Gyarados and 20 of those Lugias, and you auction them all at the same time. Like, I think that would be a really interesting experiment to see how the market absorbs them and which tanks the most, or if they both maintain. You know, can the market absorb 20 of that card on a given day without it having too much price impact?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So, yeah. So I would say that there's so many factors. It becomes, you know, almost a thought experiment to some extent, until someone with 20 Shining Gyarados decides to auction them all at once. But I've seen like Gold Star Dogs. I've seen 10 and 12 and 15 of them all auctioned at the same time, and they perform pretty decent. And I've seen like the Mew League Halls, I've seen like 8 auction on the same day, and literally one will go for like 240 and then one goes for 800. And so you know, the 800 is actually more than the card would typically sell for, and the 200 is about half the price. Yeah. You know, so it's like, I try to not make too many predictions. You know, I'll identify what I've seen as a trend before, but that's part of the data. Is like, I'm going to look at what something is today, and what is the purpose of this money spent today? Is it a collection hold? Is it a long-term hold?
Yeah.
Is it a buy and flip? And I really try not to trip on the future, because that's where you get into FOMO, and that's where, you know, Joe Schmo on his Patreon telling you that this card is the next hottest thing, and you're going to go buy it. And if you don't time it right during that pump and dump, you're the one left holding the bag. Yeah. You know, because it's an unregulated market. You can't do that with stocks. A lot of people do it with cards of different types.
Yeah, and guys, we're gonna start taking questions in a minute. I have one more kind of topic I wanted to talk with Sean though. I wanted to talk about buying and selling on these platforms. So, what's, you know, kind of give like I guess consensus on, like, you know, eBay, you got Heritage, PWCC, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Where have you found are kind of the best places to sell what and best places to buy what? Like, so, like, I guess lower mid end, you know, buy, sell, and like higher end stuff, we're like the, you know, the big fish kind of selling and buying their stuff.
Let's see. So you have Heritage, you have Golden A, you have PWCC, you have like Rare Candy. I'm trying to alt is like, there's very little on there. Courtyard, there's very little on there. So I'd say, am I missing anything for the 4 or 5 primaries there?
No, I mean, I like alt's platform. Yeah, it's not happening yet there.
There's just not much. Yeah. So in terms of selling, eBay is the king. It just has the most buyers, the most eyeballs, the most liquidity, period. The next closest is probably PWCC. PWCC performs much better on higher end, but you're going to get obliterated on lower end. And so I'm going to go through selling, and then I'll walk through buying. Rare candy is really hit or miss. I've seen all-time record set and I've seen all-time lows set. Golden, the same as rare candy, all-time records and all-time lows, but more lows to below average than records. And then heritage, it's just they're an oddball out because they have a minimum of, I think, $49 buyer's premium. So unless an item is with 25% on top, unless an item is like 500 or up, it's just not worth it to sell it on heritage because those premiums eat up so much of it. And so in terms of selling high end, you're really going to want to go between PWCC or eBay. Sometimes you'll choose rare candy. Is someone that has chose golden and heritage. Like I love all the staff members there. I have great friends that work there. I'm not sending as much there as I would like. Like I still give a little bit to them strategically, but really the data says that eBay is the king right now. And then, on the flip side of all that, from the buying experience, you're going to want to be buying in heritage. You want to go register for heritage and get approved because things go low. So you're going to be able to go purchase a card that last sold for 1,000. Sometimes it goes for 500. And golden, same thing. Go get approved to bid, and you're going to see that you get some pretty good deals across the board. And there's been group lots of slabs that have sold for $10 a slab, where people are probably doubling and tripling their money just buying that stuff up. And then eBay and PWCC, from a buying stance, eBay's just got so much that as you see with the monitor, out of 1,500 auctions, 400 are low as of, the 12 hours out. Now, some of those close the gaps. Like it looks like Lee said he won that Delta species Zard for 102 pounds. And so even with shipping, that card was probably a 75% of market buy. So that's a great pickup, right? And so that happens every minute of every day on eBay. The guys, so he probably ended it at a good time for him, like a nighttime for him, but because it's ungodly hours over here in the middle of the work week, the card arguably went low. And then PWCC they're really interesting because they end everything pretty much all at the same night and the same time. And so you don't get people who can titrate their spend over the course of a week. And I've actually made the recommendation to them multiple times. I said, guys, go to a 3-day cycle or 4 or 5-day cycle and end equal auctions over that time. Because one person, if they're ending, let me check right now how many Pokemon cards PWCC has up in this weekly. I just want to give you accurate numbers real quick. So trading cards.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and this again, it ends at one night in one time, things go in overtime. So this week, let's see. So this week and the next weekly, there's 9,297 results. And let's see. So if I go to today's weekly only, there's 2,110 items, and those end in 3 days. Well, so those end on a Sunday, all at the same time. They go into overtime, and organically, like people they don't have enough time unless you set your bid ahead of time. No human has enough time to go through 2,000 auctions in a 30-minute overtime period and identify all the deals. So you get a good deal of good buys on PWCC simply because of how they end their auction. And so, that's something where you end up having to speak with your wallet and go, guys, like as a seller, it's a bit rough because, you have 2,000 ending and some stuff does good, some stuff does bad, but that people just can't bid on your item fast enough. And then as a buyer, that same exact problem. You just can't buy fast enough, even if there's good deals. And maybe you bid on this and you only have a $500 budget for the auction. You didn't get quite outbid on this until too late. This item already ended. And so it becomes a disaster with how that ends. And
then I guess the last question is,
Sure.
And obviously we're not talking any names or exactly what but if you had to guess like a random percentage, how many people of those high end items, like 10K at least plus, 10K and up, are done off of any of those platforms? Do you think private sales? Do You think that's where most of the money is transacted, or?
I wouldn't say most, but I think there's a good deal of private transactions just because people are risk adverse and you don't want to pay a 20% auction fee or a 25% auction fee and a 10% seller's fee and then shipping and insurance. And so that $10,000 card ends up being a $13,500 spend. And so I actually think it's really smart to transact privately. And this is where, eBay is taking steps with their Vault program to really lower fees. And I think as they open up to the public, it's going to be a much, much lower spread that starts making those sort of things make sense. But anytime you can save 20-30% fees, and if you know that person or the buyer, and now you can also trade with them, right? You don't just have to take cash for it. I'd say if you can save 20%, you should.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think the Vault thing is going to help a lot because I know that the fees always deter people and they always want to try to find ways to get around it. But then on the flip side, everyone always wants a deal if you're saving fees because they know you're saving fees. It kind of becomes that weird game you play.
Yeah, that's why you just be happy with the price. And like in terms of negotiations, just pick your number and stick to it. Like if you're willing to take 10 grand for something, just be like, dude, I'm willing to take 10 grand for it. And if he tries to finagle it, like, look, I might be open to trades, but that's my price. And so to some extent, you just need to learn how to negotiate so you don't get sucked into that sort of thing. And so if you just set your price and you set a fair price, just stick to it. And if not, you could end up in a 2-hour conversation with someone going back and forth when you would have made a deal at that price, even without that sort of interaction.
Right. All right, guys, I guess we'll start taking some of your questions on here. Let me try to, I'm trying to scroll back to what we got going on. Nationwide Pokemon, do you know him? Yo, Sean, this is a long way from your Discord bot. What is that?
Yeah, I think the Discord bot was just kind of look, TCG Fish for years was just a side project, a research project, and so, I've come on to really help bring some of this stuff to people so they can use it, right? So that collectors can go, okay, here's the deals that we're going to click and do. So thank you for the kind words. That Discord bot is what blossomed into the deals page. It's just monitoring where all the undervalued and underpriced items are. So it's really cool to hear you've been around that long. Thank you.
I was not. I don't remember those days. That's crazy to hear that it came up to like this. I mean, in my mind, probably the premier website and all of the research for Pokemon. I mean, I know you listed the other sites. I've used almost all the ones you've talked about. TCG Fish. I mean, I'm not like here to like give you praises, but it's kind of head and shoulders above all the other ones. It just is.
Well,
if you're not using TCG Fish and you're doing this seriously, I mean, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Don said, outside of the normal tips, center and condition, all that, what do you look for when you're deciding to grade a card yourself?
Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about raw. So you've got however you break it down, whichever company you're submitting it to, you've got your 4 subgrades. You have centering, surface, corners, and edges. And centering is generally your biggest disqualification. So if something is 50-50 centered, you're not limited on your grade. So the first thing I personally look at, and I've got to have a card. I have some Bandais, but those are incredibly difficult. Okay, I opened a brand new box Japanese, right? So you want to make sure that it's 50-50 centered. If something is 50-50 centered, you're not going to have a grade cap. It means you can hit a 10. And then you go look at your other 3, right? And so this card is pretty much 50-50 centered. So I'm not going to disqualify it based on centering. Then you go look at surface, corners, and edges. Japanese has incredible print quality. This is a non-hollow. So odds are there's no surface defects, there's no problems, and so surface is clean. Then you look at corners and edges, and that's where you're going to have to look more so front and back. And again, Japanese has incredible print quality. This card is probably a pristine just because of what it is. It's a non-hollow, but just scrutinize each of those and you disqualify a card based on any given grade. So if you know that you need to get an 8 on a card to make it worth it, make sure that centering is an 8. If centering is not an 8, you've immediately disqualified it and you've saved a lot of time having to look through all your subgrades. And then you go to surface. Do I see light scratching, heavy scratching, no scratching? And you just move to each one. So you don't actually have to look at all 4 subgrades to decide if a card is worth it. You can start disqualifying it based on any one given subgrade.
Gotcha. And I mean, I guess, is there like percentages that you look for? Like, when you're looking to like grade a card, like, is there a certain, upside you're looking for when you, like, if you get that 10 or if it gets a 9, like, are there any criteria that you actually go through to where if you actually consider it worth grading or not?
It will depend on the card, right? If you're dealing with a much higher end card versus a much lower end card, you're going to scrutinize it based on the grade that you need to get for it to be worth it. And so, I'm trying. I don't have too much within arm's arm's reach, right? But let's see.
I get here. I guess I'll try to make it more clear. Like, sure, we can assign any number you want, but say it's a $300 raw card.
Yeah.
Are there certain, is there a certain price you'll look for in a 10 and a 9 to make it worth it? Like, if the 10's only going for, I don't know, 400 or 500, is it worth it? And the 9 you're actually going to like break even or lose on? Do you even mess with that? Or are there certain like metrics?
In that specific example, the risk reward of grading and getting a 10, it's probably just worth it to sell the card raw. So that's where I always say you're going to want to give me very specific examples. That's why I was looking for cards that I don't have an arm's reach to try and go dig into the data and give a specific example. But in the one you gave, where your upside is only $100 if you get a 10, your downside at a 9 is your grading fees and shipping. Right. And so let's say a 9 is 300 and the card raw is 300. It is 10 or bust, and it makes no sense to grade that card. Now, like, if you need it for a set or you need it for a collection, that's different. But if a card is worth $300 in a 9, raw it's worth 300, and a 10 is worth 400, it virtually is just not worth it to grade that card, because at a 9 you'll lose whatever your grading fees and shipping, $20-$30. So your downside is 10% at a 9, and your upside is only 25% on a 10. Actually less, because you're paying shipping. It may only be 15 to 18% upside on the 10. So generally,
and then going to the site, TCG Fish, is there like a certain percentage like wise you'll look for? Like, does it have to be over like a 50% chance at 10 that or you won't like really mess with it? Do you try to take those gambles? Because usually the ones that you gamble on have a higher upside. Like, do you try to stay within those at all?
So that's back to analyze the card. If something has a low 10 rate, it's because it's a difficult 10. So just you need, and generally that's where those multipliers get really, really high is if a card only 10s 1 in every 40 times, that card is probably going to be worth much more to 10. You need to just scrutinize the card raw. So I don't actually look at the 10 rate as an indicator of if the card's going to 10. I'm analyzing the card that is in front of me. And so the 10 rate, and I'd be curious to see if there's a correlation between the 10 rate and how high the 10s actually go. I'm sure there is. I think the EV League Hollow is, I don't know off the top of my head, maybe 1 in every 40. And it's like a $50 9 and a $4,000 10, right? And so that card, if you think it's a 10, it's a notoriously difficult card. They almost always come off center. And so that's a card that the over under, right? The reward for getting a 10 is so much more than whatever the grading fee is. If you think you have a shot, you need to take that virtually every time. And so generally, if the upside is 10 times more than the downside, I'll take the risk. So if the grading fee is $20 on that card, and the card raw was $20, and you get a 9, you break even or make a couple bucks, and you get a 10, you've taken $20 to 4,000, right? Like, I'd take that every single time as long as the card is clean. But make sure you analyze the condition of the card and you don't just blindly submit it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you might not be able to get in specifics, but Hermit Man's asking, what are the factors to determine the featured cards in popular and trending?
Let me check. Is that on the?
I'm not sure.
Is that on the main page, or what page are you looking at?
Hermit man, if you're here, give us more context. I honestly don't know exactly what you're talking about either when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'm trying to check.
Popular and trending
it could be the popularity score on collectability, but I don't see the trending anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. He said yes. No, Hermit man, give us more context to that. Like, what do you mean by where are you finding that? Are you finding it on the site or what?
Can you Hermit, can you get a little more specific on what you mean by trending? Or what part of the site you're
That's so funny.
Yeah, in chat, Mufasa, I mean, there's like he's drawing a correlation between the movie and how he's treating everyone right now. So he's
yeah, what's going on with him? He
just woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning.
It happens.
That's throwing Simba off the cliff, right?
So you're going to be another ClutchCon though, because I was able to meet Sean in person at Charlotte, which was nice. But you're going to the one in what is it next weekend?
Assuming there are no hiccups, I should be, yes.
All right, now are you vending again?
Probably not. Kind of set up to help display some cool stuff for people to see. I didn't actually sell anything at the show, more display. The top 100 trending cards, I'm pretty sure that feature is offline right now, so I'm not. I'm clicking around to see what he's talking about, but do not see it right now.
Huh.
But so if it's the old feature of trending cards, those are simply the cards that are transacting the most. So it's the cards that have the kind of call it liquidity ratio, and any given card buys, the frequency of sale of that card is much higher than others.
Sean, so they're saying I guess it's on the app, so it's on the mobile app. It's the landing page. Yeah, Sean, the feature on the app, not the website, I guess is what they're talking about.
Pulling it up.
Yeah.
Top 100. Steven. All right. I need Steven to, I want to get everyone an accurate answer. Let me shoot him a quick message real quick. I believe that those are the ones transacting the most, but I want to make sure that everyone gets an accurate response.
Brad, I am going to show off the Charlotte pickups when they make it back from PSA. I figured that was the better option. That way they're available if anyone wants any.
Oh, okay. So in the app, the trending cards are the most popular 100 sold within the past 90 days. The popular cards mean the overall most popular cards over the last 2 years. So trending is most popular within the last 90 days, and popular is the most popular within the last 2 years.
Interesting. Okay.
And Steven had already messaged me before I went to type to him, but I have had my phone face down and off for the interview, so I did not see that.
How funny. He gets back to you fast. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I've kind of just a broad question.
Sure.
I mean, obviously we're in. It's not an all around bear market. Everyone's calling it a bear market. I don't really think it's a bear market. I think there's pockets that we're seeing some dips in, but I mean, what's your overall feel right now for the hobby? I mean, are you still bullish on things? Are you still picking up a lot? Are you like selling more than you're buying right now? Like how are you seeing things now in this current landscape of this year, really into the last few months?
Yeah, so like I said, earlier, and I think a little bit about what we talked about before we even hopped live is I think the supply is increasing. I think the demand is pretty stable right now. I just think the supply is increasing, and so a 10 or 15% increase in supply will cause that downward pricing pressure. And now, everyone's always going to look at the world and they can say the world's on fire, but things are selling for what they're selling for, right? And an item is worth what someone is willing to pay. Whether it's a Pokemon card, a comic book, a sports card, or anything else. So I don't speculate on that sort of thing. If you're flipping, you buy today to sell today. If you're investing, the daily movement doesn't matter to you. And so the people who are trying to make these projections of where things go, they're doing nothing but torturing themselves and making their emotions run amok. So like that's where I'd say if you're investing, this should be look at your term. Is this a 5-year hold or a 10-year hold? Why are you even looking at the daily pricing metrics? If you have money in a retirement account, you don't go look at that retirement account every day. You look at that retirement account in 5 or 10 years. And if you're flipping, you simply need to be sensitive to the direction of the market, right? And so if the data says that the most recent 3 sales of this card are each down 5%, you can simply interpret that data and go, well, the next one will be down 5%. So if I can get it at a 25 or 30% discount, even though I think it's going to sell for less than it just sold for, I'm still selling it and able to make money on it. So right. That's where I would say any time people are speculating on the market's great, the market's bad, those are just words. That's back to noise. And go look at the data. And if you have a long-term mindset, the noise shouldn't matter. And if you have a short-term mindset and you are flipping, that noise shouldn't matter. And if you're buying to invest and hold for 1 year, you shouldn't be. You should have a 5 or a 10-year outlook, or you should be buying and flipping, not going, I think that there's going to be 100% price movement in 1 year. Because I'll tell you a secret, I don't have a crystal ball, neither do you or anyone else watching this chat, So it's just how much risk do you want to bear? Pick your horizon. Is this short term? Is it midterm? Is it long term? And stick to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I know some of the plays we discussed, but if you had to give, are you pretty much taking anything you can find, or do you see yourself staying on more the lower mid end? Do you get high end stuff? Because with me, I don't think I mess with what I would consider high end stuff, multiple 4 figures and then or multiple 4 figures and then into 5 figures. So, I mean, have you seen any type of difference in the higher end market compared to, kind of the, $200, $300, $400, $500 stuff?
I think that there's the opportunity for more price movement in the higher end market, but it also depends on the supply. If there's too much of the same item coming up, it's going to dip. I have watched low population, I've watched low population high end stay stable and set records now. And so this is where I'd go back to, I hate to speculate, but I would say everything right now, because so much is coming up, you can look at it and see where the most recent sales are. And some of them are trending downwards, but you have an equal amount of items that they were low pop or they haven't transacted in a year or 2 or 3, and people have been saving and waiting for those, and those are going up.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know the modern, the ultra modern right now. I mean, I know those boxes, they're getting crushed. I mean, I know Card Shop Live is putting some up at crazy prices, and they're not selling. They're not selling out immediately like I thought they would. And so I know people are definitely holding back on a lot of Scarlet Violet era stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like I said, I don't, it's impossible to speculate on what that means. I just don't know if that means that people are going back to the more tried and true stuff. If, the speculating is kind of coming down. I don't know.
The general trend, and this is why I stay out of modern. It's just this is what I've observed over many years, and it works for Pokemon and comics and sports, and it's pretty much the same everywhere. The first few cards that get to market are really high, and then it pulls the product up as a whole a little bit because they go, oh well, that full art Lugia used to be $900, and oh wow, I can now pull a $900 card out of the box, so that box may move up an extra 30 or 40 or 50 bucks. And then over the course of a couple months, that card stabilizes down to 300, and the product stabilizes. And so, again, and I just always want to say, you don't need to take my word for it. I'm just trying to give you the data that I see and what I interpret. Please always check your own data. Everyone watching this, check your own data, make your own decisions. But when the card stabilizes, when that big hit or big hits in the product stabilize, generally that product will stabilize. And you I don't even know the price of Silver Tempest. And so if someone can fact check me right now, I'm only doing this based on the data for the Lugia has that product since about March, right? So for the last 6 months, has that product been stable in price?
It wasn't. It was doing well until the reprint. But even after the reprint, it's somewhat. I mean, it fell a bit, but it's stable. I mean, it didn't crash like we've seen reprints crash in the past.
Yeah, I mean, then the reprints are always difficult. That's the one thing Yu-Gi-Oh did. I don't want to say really wrong. I have some respect because they have kept pricing down, and old cards that are really powerful, they've reprinted pretty much the identical cards. But reprints always mess with values, and they're unpredictable. But I would actually think it would be very interesting to see the correlation of the stability of the best card or best cards in a set, and look at what the correlation to the price of the sealed product is. I think that'd be a really interesting metric. Steven, if you're watching that, whenever we start tracking sealed product, like, let's figure that one out.
Any takes on Rudy, Alpha Investments grading company venture?
I mean, hey man, everyone, if you've got money to invest and you're going to put it in a grading company, just, good luck. And I don't know, I don't really know Rudy. I've never spoken to him, but I wish anyone in any business ventures, the best of luck, and just keep at it.
People are talking about the Van Gogh collection that's going to be coming up.
Yeah. So like watch that. So again, you take my words as they are, and then watch the data yourself. Generally what happens on the brand new release of this stuff is you'll see the card spike, and the first few to market will go for some incredible numbers. And then they're going to come down and stabilize. And then depending on if someone was able to buy up a massive amount of stock, like if the museum gets to the point in January and they still have 10,000 copies and someone knows a staff member and they're able to buy those, that's when you'll see some of these cards, like some people will start pumping the living crap out of it. And they're just going to pull and suck as much liquidity as they can from it. So, I think it'll be really interesting to watch on that card how the supply is, if they're properly returned and destroyed as the extras are, or if some staff member ends up getting them and they just distribute them all and it starts tanking. But I think that until at least January, we're going to see a big spike in that card or the cards from that set. Then they're going to stabilize. But that one is also, kind of like the Scream cards. They just withstand the test of time. There's more overlap than just Pokemon. You start getting the art world. You start getting people who are just appreciative of how cool it looks. And so you actually get a lot more demand for cards like that over a really long period of time.
Yeah, I agree. So is the modern thing, is that you just don't personally like it, enjoy it? Is there a reason you stick more to the vintage mid-era stuff?
So back from the sports days when I did that stuff, I liked vintage because it's stable. I knew that a Mickey Mantle card was always going to be a Mickey Mantle card, and I knew what his popularity was, and I knew, plus or minus what that card was worth. And to some extent, I bring those philosophies to what I buy or sell or invest in on Pokemon or other trading cards. And, a first edge shiny Mewtwo is going to be a first edge shiny Mewtwo. There's no crazy increase in supply. There's probably not going to be any crazy increase in demand. And it's just, it's an overall stable card. And I'm a fan of stability and the long haul for things like that. So I don't stay out of modern because I dislike it. I think some of the artwork is incredible. I'm going to, whenever I see what I think is possibly a bottom for the for that Van Gogh, I'll pick up one of those, but I'm not going to buy and speculate on it. I'm going to buy it because I think it's really, really cool and I just want to have a copy.
How are you with the English and Japanese right now? I mean, with Japanese a surge in the past couple of years, have you kind of always been dabbling in both? Have you transferred a lot more to Japanese with kind of the spike, or how do you handle that?
I mean, I'd probably say pretty equal. The interesting thing is most of the Japanese versions of the English cards really aren't worth that much when you go to Media Factory for, Japanese or Wizards of the Coast for English. The Shinings ignore those rules, but let's say you take, even, I don't know, like the Mew, the fossil Mew. So it's a fossil Mew in Japanese, and in a 10 it's worth maybe $200, and the League Hollow in English PSA 10 is probably around 1,000. And so they're a lot more plentiful in Japan, and for the most part they cost less than their English counterpart for the same exact type of card.
So you're saying, so you're saying the vintage, you're saying more in the vintage market, the Japanese is usually a lot less than the English?
Yes. Then once you get to like, let's see, like Expedition, an Expedition Japanese Charizard in a 10, the hollows are what, $1,200, and that English hollow is, I mean, 8-10 grand. But the differentiation where Japanese is way above English is those like old Japanese full arts and waifus, like the like late 2000s, like the 2000, probably 6 to 8 to 2016, 2017. That's where there's some more variation and variance in the full arts. And you'll see that an English copy of Bianca, it might be a couple $100, and the Japanese copy might be $1,200 or $1,500.
Yeah. Yeah, do you think where's the Japanese pull rates in a lot of those older hollows a lot easier too? Is that their reason?
Yeah. So like if the base box Japanese was one in every other pack, but like Fossil and Jungle Rocket, there's a hollow in every single pack.
Every pack, right?
Yeah. And so you had a 60 pack box where you'd pull 60 hollows, whereas in English you'd have a 36 pack box where you'd pull 11 to 13 hollows.
That makes sense.
99% of the time, 12 hollows.
Yeah, so, that makes sense.
Yeah, so per box, you have 5 times more supply of those Japanese cards than English.
Guys, I'm not going to keep Sean all day. If you guys got any questions, leave them in the chat now, and we'll get to them. Sean, is there anything else you wanted to, anything you want to talk about, bring up, any TCG fish stuff? The floor is yours, man.
Yeah, so look, I'd say, guys, join the Discord. Like talk about. Feel free to hop in and talk about deals. Like if you want to pull me into voice and you have questions about, about do I think that this is a good deal, or why, or what factors you might want to consider. Just hop on the Discord and talk to us and ask. We don't bite, I promise, and we just want to promote a objective review of data for everyone to make their best decisions. So hop on the Discord and ask. Hop on the deals page, and again, go to the Discord and ask. If you see something, you're like, well, why is this a 5 thumbs up? I don't think it's a good deal. Like, open up a discussion. Like feel free to talk about your passion in the cards, whether you are long-term investing or short-term flipping. We support everyone equally, and just want you to feel that you're empowered in your decision making.
Is the app down, Danny? I think he's asked this twice. When will the app be fixed? Is it down?
The apping. So the one thing is on get like folds and tablets. So because a fold is considered a tablet and it's not formatted correctly right now, you cannot download it on a Galaxy Fold or a tablet, but you can get it on any like Android, Samsung, or iPhone outside of the folds or tablets. So if there's something that is broken, please feel free to hit us up and support on Discord. But I am not familiar with any errors there.
Derek, I'll bring your question up. I don't know if either one of us are going to be able to help on that. I mean, can you talk about how texture printing technology is different in English, Japanese? Will English ever upgrade to equal? I have nothing to say on that. Sean, anything?
So I don't think that English will ever upgrade to be equal. I do believe over the last 4 to 5 years, there have been some significant improvements on the English side, but Japanese stock that they print on, the holographics, those cards are just more resilient. And I don't know if that's purposeful or not, that English are the way they are. I have to think that it's not purposeful if they've made certain upgrades in their printing. And look at the cards, it's ever so slightly darker. There's a little bit more sealant on it, and so they're moving in that direction. But Japanese print quality is just insane. Like I opened up one of those 151 boxes, like all the non-hollows, well centered. Perfect corners, perfect. Like I would have to think if I graded this whole stack, it's probably all 10s. You do that for an English box, you're looking at 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s. Sometimes if you're lucky.
Sixes. It's crazy. Makeel, you had a question. What do you think about the Evolutions Charizard? How it's going for $1,500. It's knowing that not much more Evolutions boxes will be opened. Can we anticipate the price to creep up over time? It says that similar pop to base set Charizard. That's a crystal ball question, but I mean,
without giving too much information, there's a lot of Evolution Seal product out there. Like a lot, far more than any WotC era box. And that's one where and this is based on experience, there's some pop control at PSA, and there are 9s that should be 10s, and there are 10s that should probably be 7s, and they do some pop control there because they need to keep the price of cards high, and so that card. Again, I don't want to speculate. If it's worth $1,500 right now, if that's what you can sell it for, it's worth $1,500. But there's a pretty significant supply of Evolutions boxes as compared to Wizards of the Coast. So even calculation is similar. Now you can go look at, well, why is that card $1,500 when a base set Charizard and PSA 10 is 8 to 10,000, right? And so. That's probably a reflection of the demand if the supply is equal, and the demand for the base set Charizard is far higher. And if it's like that, what is this, 7 years after Evolutions and 24 years after base set, it's probably going to stay pretty consistent and similar. Yeah. And then I'll take a couple more questions, and then we can.
It's Evolutions is printed like crazy. I mean, I get the boxes that are expensive, but I mean, I do have to dive into that real quick though. Like. The whole pop control thing. So go a little more into that. You know this like for a fact? I
mean, look, there's no facts. You're never going to have PSA or CGC or Beckett or anyone confirm or deny anything. But this is from my experience. Like when I look at a card, I know what card's a 9 and I know what card's a 10. I've been through so many millions of cards in my life and every vertical. Like I trust my eye more than any variation of graders that look at a card. And that there's plenty of times, back to grading arbitrage, like looking at the card. That's why that 9 to 10 differential is so big. PSA makes money by you guys cracking your cards out and sending it back, as do all the grading companies. And so there is opportunity to buy 9s that review to 10s. Or that you crack out and get 10s on. So like, I can't say there's no like smoking gun, I can point to, the president of PSA said this, right? This is just a culmination of experience that, why are there so many more 10s or gem mints or pristines of certain cards with other grading companies than there are with PSA? And, Beckett has started pumping out more black labels than they did previously. And there's like, gem rate trackers, and there's some things that track that. And you can actually see when things tighten up from a grading perspective and when things loosen up. So again, I don't think anyone at PSA or any grading company will ever confirm or deny that. But the data, that's where you have to sit down and look at the data and interpret the data and go, no one's ever going to confirm or deny this, but for some reason during the pandemic, the 10 rate went way down. And then for some reason, 2 years later, the 10 rate went way up. Like, what changed? It wasn't that they just happened to hire a new grader, right? Like you don't get 20 or 30% difference, like virtually over the period of a month, and it stays consistent. That's just not one grader hopping in and doing that, is it? So that's where I'll see if we can't start tracking population data and point that out. And I don't want to sit here and make an enemy of any marketplace or grading company, but it's good to point that sort of information out and show it to the market there's a lot more 10s coming out. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Leaf Green Goblin, you have been chosen for the last question we're taking.
All right.
When it comes to low population vintage that isn't English, Japan mid-era, do you lean towards opportunity or lack of demand for these cards down the line?
All right, let me reread this.
He's basically asking, do you think there's huge opportunities there, or do you think the demand is not going to be there for a lot of those cards?
I mean, this is back to, I just don't speculate. Like these sort of questions are where I try and correct thinking of, like, this is speculation. This is, I like, this is not a responsible question. So I guess this is how I'm going to answer it. Like Leaf Green Goblin, I don't think this question is responsible. You're speculating on the direction of what something is going to go, and I can't predict that. Nor can Alex, nor can you, nor can anyone in this chat. Like. And now he's correct. He says, I'm talking Japanese WotC. So I don't, you can rephrase the question if I'm misunderstanding it. But if it is something going to go up or down, I'm never going to answer that question. What I'll say is over a 10-year period, go look back 10 years and see what a base set Charizard was versus today. So if you're going to buy something and hold it for 10 years, I think you've got a good mindset. If you're going to buy a card and flip it tomorrow, you've got a good mindset. If you think that this card's going to go up or down, it's just not like you're buying in, and if you're collecting, strictly collecting with no investing, then the money shouldn't matter. And if you're investing, then that price movement isn't going to matter. Just ask yourself the question: is in 10 years, is this card going to be worth more? And then put it up, and don't look at the card for 10 years.
Well, guys, I think that's going to do it, man. Sean, really appreciate you coming on. I know I got comments or questions in the last video, I think, or maybe it was on Discord. No, I'm not sponsored or affiliated with TCG Fish. I just like having Sean on. It's just pick his brain about the markets and, where he sees things heading, and just kind of get a better idea of how to use the site. Because, guys, these tools, if these things were around like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, when, the hobby wasn't as huge and everything wasn't booming, you could have just made a fortune using these things. And I just think they're underutilized. So anyone who's trying to do this hobby seriously, even if you're just trying to have collection goals for yourself, check out TCG Fish. It really will help you. That's really all I got to say. Sean, what do you got to say in closing here, man?
In closing, guys, just hop on the Discord, talk to us. If you collect, if you invest, if you buy, if you sell, if you flip, we've got a lot of really great, dealers and collectors and investors on the Discord. We're always, happy to have any and everyone on. I don't know if you can, pop a link in the video or in chat so people can hop on, but just come talk to us and think for yourself and review data as the data is, and stop listening to some of the fear and mumbo jumbo that people spew, and just think. Like, look at data and think and make a decision with careful thought instead of just impulsively buying or selling or blindly listening to someone.
Yeah, that's the best thing we can possibly say in closing here is just do your own research, analyze things for yourself and make up your own mind off what the research shows you, because we could all look at the same exact data, same exact charts, same exact history, same exact cards, and we could all come up with a different answer for ourselves. And, some of us might be right, some might be wrong. But, if you're just following one person or a couple people's advice, it's just not the way to go. All right, guys. Probably have Sean back here in the future again. But, any questions about TCG Fish or him, you can direct them, in their Discord. And we'll be back here in a future one.
All right. Sounds good.
See ya.
All right. Thanks.